So I was just about done with this guy, the Zorky one from my previous video, and after adjusting the working distance, I was about to adjust the rangefinder. The shutter has already been adjusted, and I decided to use a test roll. So I got like dummy cartridges of film and discovered that the camera is ripping film. Now it's not just ripping the film here and there, it's ripping film like this. So it's a total mess, and that led me to try at least to identify the culprit. So my initial thought was the fact that the clutch system, so basically the way this mates with this one, was too tight. But it turned out it wasn't. What I did, I tried to use a different part. So I used this set, which is from another Zorky one, and I also used this one, which is from another Zorky one. It didn't matter, it was the same. And then I decided to take the shell off and try to see if the same thing happens without the shell. And it wasn't. So the camera was working correctly, there was no tension too great on the film, no ripping, nothing. And that led me to believe that the only culprit can be the pressure plate, because that's the only thing that's added to the system when the body shell is on. So I looked around and it kind of started to make sense. I don't know if you can see. Let me see. So inside the body shell there is a cutout, a circular cutout that should allow the pressure plate to go down. But this cutout is interrupted in the upper part. So from here to here. If instead of this round one I would use this one, it would sit flush, because on the other side there is a cutout in the pressure plate. So this cutout mates with that embossed part. For a round pressure plate like this, you should have or use a body shell that has a round cutout. This one fits correctly here, and this one fits correctly here. But this one that was in this camera doesn't fit correctly here. It's raised, so it sits raised on the upper part. Now, in order to test my theory, I will need to cut a bit of this lip that is all around the pressure plate. So I'm going to make some marks and simply cut like from here to here, round off everything and try again. Obviously all my measurements for working distance are now probably off, because it's possible that this was always like a bit canted inside. We'll see, I will recheck the measurements and readjust them. And this is probably what happened. The pressure plate was pushing too hard on the upper part against the film. So yeah, just a short one today. This is part one. The second part of the video will probably have this one already adjusted, and we'll see how that goes, because if it breaks the film just as it did before, then I am stuck with a totally refurbished camera that is useless. And unfortunately with these older models of Zorky 1, you can't really interchange parts, so I can take the shutter from this one and put it maybe in a different body, but the chances are they won't fit. Maybe the holes are like 0.5 millimeter off, stuff like that. Alright, yeah, so hopefully my idea will work. Well, I'm happy to report that my assumption was correct. So I did this. No, yeah, you can probably see it. So this part was grinded down, and it now fits this area correctly, something like this. So I started here and ended up here, and I polished the surface. It might not look very professional, but it's very smooth and it sits flush with the bottom or the rear of the body shell. Okay, so this is one of the issues. The film is running smoothly now, that's okay. And the other issue was the fact that, especially when rewinding the film, there was a scratchy sound, like the film rubbing. Let me get some. This is all fucked. So like the film rubbing against the edges of the cartridge, of the take-up spool. And in order to fix that, although it's maybe not completely fixed, but it's a lot better, I kind of beveled the inner edges of the take-up spool. I think I will need to maybe repaint them. Maybe, I don't know, although it shouldn't matter, there's no light going around here, so they might as well remain like this. Maybe paint over these scratches, maybe. I'll see. Okay, so yeah, that's the bottom line, I suppose. As a kind of warning, in the sense that anything can happen with these old cameras, and from my experience, most likely to happen are these. So the older Zorky models. I'm not really sure. I think this one is a 1C, I think. Anyway, it has 3 screws on the back. The newer models only have 2 screws on the back. So this is a Zorky 1D, I think. Okay, next step will be to get everything back and recheck the working distance, because I'm pretty sure it's off now. And in order to do that, obviously I will have to measure the distance from the lens mount to the pressure plate, because the pressure plate is held against not this one, is held against the rails, the film rails, by these 2 little springs. More often than not, the pressure exerted by the spring in the depth caliper is actually stronger than what these little guys can do. So what happens is that the measuring pin will push down the pressure plate and will give you a higher reading than normal. In order to kind of get past this problem, what I do is I double up the springs. So I have another set of springs that I took from another camera, and I will just put like 2 springs, one on top of the other, and the pressure plate on top. So I will have double the pressing force against the pressure plate, and it's usually more than enough. When I'm done calibrating the working distance, I take everything off or out, remove the extra set of springs, and reinstall everything with my setup of shims. So right now I had a setup like this. This was one, and I needed another one here to get the working distance as close as possible to perfect. It was like 28.8, which is the correct working distance, in 3 corners and the center, and only one corner was just a bit off, and it was, I suppose, the acceptable compromise, let's say, because adding more to that corner would have probably shifted the working distance from the center point, which is the most important one, because usually that's where you are focusing the image. Because the rangefinder patch is in the middle, so you focus on something and then maybe you recompose, but the center of the image is the most important part in the overall frame. Okay, this is it for today. See you next time with probably more Soviet adventures.